Christy here from Okanagan School of Natural Hoof Care. Today I wanted to show you a quick video clip on how I decide where to start my breakover point at the toe, or my bevel, or my Mustang roll, whatever you want to call it. When I'm trimming, I think about a lot of different factors. You know, how I want the horse to break over, are they landing on their heels, how is that transition going from the heel to the toe. Assessing the breakover point is really important. There's not really a rule here that you can follow for every horse. It's going to be different depending on their wear patterns and their movement. But generally speaking, I like to bring my breakover back to the white or golden line. So we'll start there and see what happens. So when I'm looking at a hoof like this, I'm following the solar concavity up until here where it kind of flattens out and plateaus and then comes forward to the edge of the hoof. So she's really wearing this section here, or what we would call the toe callus or the sole at the toe. When I'm thinking about a breakover point for her, I want to come right back to her white line, and you can see the water line here. So I know adjacent to that water line is going to be her white or golden line. I can also take my rasp and just kind of file off a thin layer so that I can really see it. I want to make sure if I'm going to do that though, I'm not going to take any of this sole at the toe. So now I can see her white line right along here, running just kind of where that dirt groove is here. So now when I'm putting on my bevel, I'm gonna hold my rasp at approximately a 45-degree angle, and I'm gonna go straight up and down. I like to apply this as a bevel at the toe as opposed to a roll. So I'm not coming down and rolling my rasp around. I am gonna turn this bevel into a roll when I dress the top of the hoof, but what I find is if I round it out from the bottom, when I go to dress the top, I still have some flare to remove, and I end up making the bevel or the roll too steep. So I like to do it in two separate parts. So I start with my bevel, coming back right to her white line. And again, I'm paying really close attention not to accidentally take any of that toe callus off or the sole at the toe. While I say there's no hard, fast rules about trimming, you gotta tailor it to each individual horse, you can generally almost always, and I say that carefully, almost always, trim back to their white line without causing damage. The tricky part is, when do we trim past that? There are very few occasions, but they do exist. That's not something I can address in a video, it's more of an in-person thing, but you can usually be safe coming back to that white line. So on her, I've come through nicely here. I've got a bit of a bulge over here, address that. It's also important to me to make the transition between the flat quarter and our bevel here smooth. So I just kind of want to come in and smooth that transition up. Here you can see it's flat and there's a bit of an edge right here. So I'm just gonna shape it like so. I'll address the rest of the foot and then we'll continue from the top to turn this bevel into a roll. All right, when I'm turning this bevel now that we put on from the bottom into a roll, I'm just coming from the top. This horse doesn't have a whole lot of hoof flare, just a little bit in that bottom third or quarter. I'm just gonna come along and take the edge off, which is essentially turning that bevel now into a roll. And I could have done this from the bottom if I was careful, but I find sometimes people are too aggressive when they do that, and I personally prefer to teach it in two separate steps. So just like that, again, this horse doesn't have a lot of flare, so I'm not doing a whole lot of top dressing. I'm making sure she has a round-ish hoof shape that corresponds to her coffin bone shape, and just making sure I alleviated any flare. In the process, I rounded that bevel out into a roll.